Morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. Fasten your seatbelts, more bids going in. Some fantastic bits of journalism actually this morning. We'll be discussing around quite a lot of things. Also, Man United players up for sale, but we're going to start off talking about an abundance of information. It's a news show. Get a pen and paper because you might need to write some of this down. I certainly have. We've got an update on Branthwaite. We've got an update on Wan-Bissaka. There's Joao Neves. There's CUNHA. There's Xerxes. There is also talk about other players as well that I thought I wrote down. Offers coming in for players as well as what was that other thing I wanted to? Oh yeah, this massive piece about Man United, Ten Hag, the problems, Casemiro. So much to get into on the show this morning, but we're going to start off. Well, look. I don't want to dwell on Branthwaite too much because I feel it's slow sports news. We've already done a video on Branthwaite's terms being agreed. That was there. You should be subscribed. So I don't want to repeat it. You'll probably be getting that UK Gold effect all morning from other outlets. So I don't want to do that. I want to move the conversation on. I think the interesting thing about Branthwaite is terms agreed isn't a problem. We wouldn't have expected that anyway. The big thing is going to be if Everton agree a price with Manchester United. Some people are saying that this deal will be done for about 57 million pounds. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know whether that's speculative or whether that's inside knowledge. I guess we'll have to just wait and see. But I think the more interesting thing from me reading your comments, and it's nice just to do that little 10-minute terms agreed video we did late last night. Some of you might have seen it this morning. Is that reading those comments, a lot of you are saying, little bit concerned about the price, little bit concerned about the wages. He's on about 40 grand a week at Everton. He's going up to about 160 grand a week at Man United. Everton would never be able to give him that wage. Even if they give him a new contract, Everton won't give him 160 grand a week. So why are we doing it? Look, the wage thing is a separate argument. I focus on the player. I think the player is a good player. And it's a player that Ten Hag was looking at before INEOS even came in. So let's not pretend that it's British-centric from INEOS. This is a player that Man United had been looking at before INEOS came in. I think the big thing for me is the wage will put him in as one of our top earners, but not top earners, which if he's going to be a starting centre-back is probably about right. I think it all comes down to the price. And the price, to me, has got to be below, I think, 55 million is tops. Put your add-ons on, but we don't want to be creeping up towards... And he's nothing like Harry Maguire. Look, the similarities between Harry Maguire are the fact that he's English, he's a male, and if we pay a lot of money on wages and a transfer fee. As a player, they're very, very different. So I think it's all about the price. How quickly can we get that Branthwaite deal done? Look, there's talk that Everton need to sell. If nobody else is in the race, then they might need to sell quicker. But I don't think, can buy before the end of June anyway. So I'd wait and see. It could run for weeks. It could run for days. But look, we're past that first stage of terms agreed. I think the next one is going to be fee agreed with the club and then deal done. And then here we go. And then official announcement. How long's a piece of string? But the thing that's really exciting me this morning as we move on, and we can come back to Branthwaite, give us your thoughts, of course. The thing that excites me this morning is this INEOS transfer blitz. We hoped that this would happen after Erik Ten Hag or a manager decision was made. And I remember saying this on Tuesday night when it came out about Ten Hag. Wouldn't it be nice if the Ten Hag thing carried on a little bit for a day or so, and then it was boom, let's go with transfer news. And that's exactly what's happened. Some really interesting couple of stories I want to bring in this morning that I would describe as monitors. Fabrizio Romano has literally just tweeted in the last 20 minutes that Aaron Wan-Bissaka could be leaving Manchester United this summer. Interest from England and from Italy. 1 year left on his deal. There's a real opportunity for him to go. I mean, some people would say, well, what's Fabrizio saying there? Look, Fabrizio will put that tweet out the same way David Ornstein will or any other journalist, because they'll be hearing stuff and they'll just be letting you know that, you know, if in a month's time Wan-Bissaka goes, he'll probably quote tweet that and say Wan-Bissaka signs for Crystal Palace or something like that. He'll have heard that there's a real opportunity for Wan-Bissaka to go. And I think Wan-Bissaka does need to go. I think there are other players that need to go as well. And interestingly, just on that, if we've got time, we'll come back to it later in the show. But the Mirror and it was David McDonnell. And as I've always said, the Mirror seemed to have some connection to Manchester United since the Ten Hag ownership. Says that INEOS will listen to offers for most of the United squad, the exceptions being Onana, Martinez, Dalot, Garnacho, Mainu and Højlund. I would add Mason Mount into that as well. So that story just keeps coming out again. And there's some really interesting pieces. I would implore you, we're going to get through the transfer stuff, but there's a really good article in The Athletic from Laurie Whitwell today, which I'm sure some of you have read already. We put a couple of tweets out on United Stand, but I've got some notes to go through from that. It talks about why Sancho is not going to be a Man United player anymore, and it explains it really well. It talks about Rashford's wages and how he could be going out the door if things don't change in his relationship with Ten Hag. It talks about, you know, what happened after Belfast and a massive talk with Sir David Brailsford that seemed to energise Rashford. It talks about Casemiro and Varane having issues with Ten Hag and, you know, comparing it to Ancelotti and Zidane. It talks about, you know, the things that have gone wrong at the club that Ten Hag's not been happy about, around the medical situation, around players he wanted to sign but wasn't given, like Declan Rice instead of Casemiro. So not when Rice went to Arsenal. So we'll get into that in a few minutes' time, because there's some really interesting stuff in there. But let's focus in on the transfer stuff, because there is this assault from Manchester United at the moment to go and get things done. And it's funny because I saw somebody on X this morning saying there's too much going on. And it's like, it's the tip. I don't know what it's like where you live, but in England, if it, you know, we moan about the weather and then we get some sunny days and people start going, it's too hot. You know what? It's too hot now. And yet when it rains every bloody day of the summer, it's like, oh, when are we going to get a summer? And then you get a hot day. Oh, it's too hot. It's, you know what, it's too hot. And I saw this tweet this morning and I was just like, it just reminds me of that, because it was somebody was literally saying, there's just too much going on at the moment. It's chaotic. And it's like, but that is what we want and that is what we need. We're just not used to it. I'm enjoying this. It is chaotic. There is a lot of stuff going on. But when you start your transfer window in the middle of June and you're going on tour in the middle of July, and there's a Euros and the season starts in the middle of August, you've only got, and there's a weekend 2 days out of every 7 days, you've got to be on the assault. Like, you can't just go, let's do Branthwaite for the next 3 weeks. Oh shit, we're off on tour. You've got to be bang, bang, bang. And I think that's what United are doing with INEOS. They are chucking out a load of stuff. It is structured, but they are going there. Okay, that can't be done. Let's go there. Because look, when I talk to you about Joao Neves, that's one of the ones I want to talk to you about this morning. Right. So I spoke to somebody this morning about Branthwaite and some other stuff, and we were talking about general transfers. And I said, did you see the clip about CUNHA from Wolves? So CUNHA's on holiday somewhere, and he's been asked about, is he coming to Man United? And he said, words to the effect, I'm enjoying my time at Wolves. It's a real honour or whatever to be, you know, linked to Manchester United. I'm enjoying my time at Wolves, but it's the transfer window. We'll just have to wait and see what happened. And this person said to me, look, that is a deal that would not surprise me. Similar to Branthwaite, it is a player that Man United really do like. They have scouted him extensively. He's certainly on the same level as a Xerxes, a Jonathan David, or any other striker that Man United have been linked to. But this will come down to viability of Wolves. So I said, well, look, there's a lot of people that like CUNHA. I've got a morning show. Would you mention it on that? And they said, well, I would, because you might be talking about a player that United signed before anyone else is really talking about it. So what I take away from that, and also they spoke to me about Joao Neves, but what I take away from that is that CUNHA is on the list, and therefore he could well be a player that Man United go for. But I think this is the exciting thing for me, is that we're getting information from all over the place, and we're getting it publicly as well, which is even better. But we are approaching a lot of players. We are approaching a hell of a lot of players, and we are approaching a lot of clubs, and we are throwing stuff out there, because if it doesn't stick, you move on. So you go to the Xerxes deal, you see where his head at is and where Bologna's head is, and if it's at Milan, you go, fine, we'll move on. And you go to Wolves and you go about CUNHA, and Wolves go absolutely 60 million or nothing, and you go, forget it then, because we can go and get the guy from Hoffenheim, Bayer, for 30 million. So I think this is good. it will come across as being, you know, a little bit haphazard, but it isn't. It's what I used to do on Christmas Eve when I used to have to work all the way up until Christmas Eve. I would write a list down, wife, kids, parents, and I'd have 4 options for each present. And I'd go each shop and I'd go, right, that's outside the budget because I've bought that now. And I'd be like going, right, bam, bam, organised. People would think it was chaotic, but I'm running around with my bags. I know what I want. Okay, I've spent that on that, so that means I've got to go down to plan B for that. And that is what United are doing at the moment. So CUNHA is certainly a player I would keep an eye on. I think it depends on Wolves' financial situation and whether they want to get real or not. But as we said yesterday, you've got Jonathan David, you've got Xerxes, you've got Bayer at Hoffenheim, all available for under 35 million, all under 25. And if you go for Tony or you go for CUNHA, you might be doubling up on that or nearly doubling up on that. Joao Neves, this is, to me, I will not move away from Joao Neves being absolutely, what's the word? It doesn't make sense. There's a better word than it doesn't make sense. Unfathomable. Unrealistic. The Joao Neves thing just doesn't make sense to me because Benfica, 100 million euros at least, and they don't take the piss. And Joao Neves, I think, is better than Enzo Fernandez, and they took Chelsea for the lot. So, and they took Liverpool for the lot for Darwin Nunez. So, when Joao Neves is mentioned, and he's about to play in the Euros, where I think a lot of people are going to look at him, and a lot of people say, not happening, says Ginge, too expensive. What I was told this morning was that the Joao Neves story is happening. Like, it is genuine. Like, Man United are genuinely doing something around Joao Neves. Now, my answer to that is always going to be what I've said to you. Yeah, forget about it. Forget about it. It's not happening. It doesn't logically make any sense. But what I can say is, around what we've heard over the last couple of weeks, and other journalists have spoken about it as well as the one I spoke to this morning, there is something happening there. Now, how it works, you know, answers on a postcard. I don't know how that works. I don't think we're going to go, Benfica are going to go, you can have him for 50 million quid. I don't see that. So how does this work? But it's one to keep an eye on because there is definitely something going on there. And it might just be that INEOS, Ten Hag, know that this guy would be their midfielder for the next 6 years. He's going to get better. He's going to start every week. And he's going to make United go from there to there. And that in itself, I respect. I understand that. Because we can all go, too expensive, we can't do the deal. But if you're sat there in your meetings and you're saying, look, hold on a minute, forget the money for a moment, right? This guy drops into our midfield. He takes the ball off the back four. He feeds the players in front of him. He gets better and better, and he becomes our Rodri for the next 6 years and becomes one of the best players in that position in the world. We go from a team that hasn't got that and hasn't had it to a team that has it for the next few years. And absolutely, the byproduct of that will be we will move higher up in the world of football. Now, you'll get somebody in the room will go, yeah, but Benfica want 100 million. And someone else in the room will go, well, we can't do that deal. But then someone else in the room might go, well, hold on a minute. We can't do that deal, right? What if we do it over 5 years, 20 million? You know, what if we find a way of doing it? What if we sell Rashford to PSG for 70 million to generate it? Or what if we sell Bruno to Saudi Arabia to generate it? Now, I wouldn't do either of those things, but what I'm saying is there might be a way because somebody in that room might just go, look, I know we don't want to buy players for 100 million, but if we're all in agreement that this player is the right player that's going to be here for the next 6 years and everybody agrees and we all take it on the chin so that we don't throw someone under the bus in a year's time and say it was Eric's fault or it was Wilcox's fault. If we all agree that this is the right player for us, then we must do everything we can to try and do everything we can so that when we regret it in 2 years' time because he's playing for someone else, we know what we did in this room. And how they get to that point, I don't know. But I do know that those conversations are going on because Joao Neves is probably our number one target in the midfield. It's just the viability of how you do it. And I suppose one other thing I would add to that and this is just my opinion, obviously most of that is what I've been told, but my opinion on this is, if he's going to cost 100 million, but over the next 3 years you spend 40 million on 3 other options that don't work, he's cheaper. Look, Pep Guardiola over the last 2 years has bought Nunez from Wolves, Phillips from Man City, Kovacic from Chelsea, all totaling about 150 million quid. And he's still looking for another one. So that's one way of looking at it, isn't it? I know United want to move away from big wages and big transfer fees, but if you've got the right people on your board and they're having the conversation I've just said there, 100 million outlay, we will get the piss taken out of us and people will get very nervous about that. But if you buy 2 or 3 options that don't work out, you go beyond that 100 million anyway. All I'm saying is it's a big picture signing, like Paul Lucas said. I don't think we can do it. I don't think we have the money to do it. But all I can tell you is we're definitely looking at it, and he probably is our number 1 priority in the midfield. And I think what United are going to do from now on, and I agree with it, is they're going to sit in that room, they're going to talk it out, and even if everybody agrees and says this is the player, if they can't do it, they'll all just say, look, it's one of those that we're just going to have to say we couldn't do it, and we knew we wanted it. But they don't want, it's a bit like the manager situation, they don't want to look at every single option, because a lot of people thought we were going to sack Ten Hag, and yet here he is. And a lot of people think we won't sign Joao Neves, and I'm one of them, but who knows, he might be holding up that shirt. But if you take the price away, he is absolutely United's player that they want. You've got Bruno Fernandes very close to him. He'll probably end up wearing light blue because they've got the money. They can do it. And that will be regretful. But keep an eye on Joao Neves, 100%. There's definitely something going on there. I'd just be very intrigued to see how we can do it. It's not the price of Joao Neves for me. I'd pay for quality. My concern is his ability to play as a DM with Mainu. His size and physicality worry me, says Larry. Look, I think Joao Neves is like Ederson. Very different players. Are they specialist number 6s? No. But I think categorically both can do that role. Especially Joao Neves because he's so young. I think he can grow into that role. I agree, Joao Neves can be an 8. I think he can be. But I think that, you know, Manchester United with Joao Neves in the midfield, I think it would work. But look, you're not wrong, Larry. I think that's something else Man United would look at as well. John Draken has gifted 5 memberships. You're a legend. So has Sticks. Get your badge in. Benny says, I've been a subscriber since 600k and I love the positive direction you've taken the channel. Big up. It's so nice to be in a positive conversation. Let the haters hate. Let Baby Reindeer FC stalk. We know what we've got. And, you know, I'm loving the shows at the moment. So big shout out to Sticks, who's gifted 5 memberships. Rudy says, I think we're trying to get 80 million for Casemiro. Yeah, if we can do that, we're all right, aren't we? Andy Mack, Man United may sign Neves on an 8-year deal. I don't think we can do that anymore. Benny Custard, welcome to Members Clips. Ben says, haven't upgraded the squad, just downgraded Varane, says Ben. I'll tell you what we have upgraded, and I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse. The Hotometer changes at 2 o'clock today, so make sure you tune in for that. That's changing on the 2 o'clock show. How can we afford all of this if we haven't even sold anyone? We spoke about that last night. John, you don't have to sell to buy as long as you sell, i.e., you know, you don't have to sell a player before you buy a player, because you could buy a player and then sell a player in August. You know, your budget isn't based on your day-to-day. It's based on your financial year. We don't like a good whingers, Brits, Mark, says Carlos. Have you seen reports Elise's clause is only for Champions League and why Chelsea haven't done the deal, says Carlos. I mean, my minuscule update on Elise this morning, because there is so much to get involved in. My minuscule update on Elise is that, from what I'm hearing, personal terms have verbally been agreed with Chelsea. We, on one hand, can't say we're still in the race for Elise, and then on the other hand, be saying we've got personal terms done with Branthwaite, he's ours. I mean, that's problematic. Elise, personal teams done with Chelsea. Branthwaite, personal terms done with us. It's not looking good, Brev. It's not. But, look, I go back to what I've said before. The way INEOS are behaving at the moment, you've got to be in it to win it. I personally think if they wanted Elise, this deal was there to be done for weeks. And they clearly haven't waited for Ten Hag decision to move on transfers. There's obviously a lot of work been done on transfers pre-Ten Hag decision or ongoing with the Ten Hag decision. And I said this on Tuesday night, didn't I? I said, look, if we sack Ten Hag, everything slows down because a new manager comes in and you've got to run it by them. The Ten Hag staying allows us to go full steam ahead on the work that we've done, i.e. Branthwaite is a Ten Hag target that he's happy about. So the same with Xerxes, the same with CUNHA, the same with Todibo. A lot of these deals can just carry on. Not enough going on for my liking, says Dazu. He wants more. Mitt says, morning, Mark. If we don't get any offers for our unwanted players, should INEOS still cut contracts to show intent? Costs a lot of money to do that, Mitt. I mean, Barcelona are one of the only clubs I know that do that. I don't think we'd do that. Why don't INEOS look at the South American market for young future stars, says Casey. Well, I think we will do. I think that's an exciting element that Ajax have always had. I think we will do. Can you speak in an American accent from now on, says Tina? No. Still buzzing about Ten Hag, to be honest. Feels a weight has been lifted. Also, the Euros today, I'm buzzing. Yeah, don't forget, from tonight, our 8 o'clock show becomes 7 o'clock because of the 8 o'clock kickoffs for the Euros, where I'll be doing all the watch-alongs for those on That's Football. So make sure you get involved in that. But, look, let's keep the tempo going. We've got a really good summary of the Athletic article that's come out this morning from Laurie Whitwell, just to give you some of the bullet points from that we're going to be talking about. The 3 key things that they wanted from Ten Hag when they took him: Casemiro and Varane questioning Ten Hag, Sancho and why he, the issue there, Anthony issue, Rashford, lack of a sporting director, players that Ten Hag wanted that didn't get, the injury issue. Really good comments to go through in relation to that, if you just bear with us for a couple of minutes. Also, as well, Liking Trash has gifted a membership, and Tommy Vincent says, I wouldn't be surprised to see Martinez play at left back in the odd game if it's an option, if we've got no left back, and Todibo and Branthwaite play at centre back. Give Benfica 70 million and Anthony, says Pete. And most summers we say we've got 150 million and get shafted. Is this 50 million budget genius from INEOS to keep people guessing and real budget quiet, says Skinfade. John Drakens gifted 5 memberships. Who do you think will be our biggest signings of space? Well, I think at the moment it could well be Branthwaite. Remember, if you are tuning in, we're not going to talk about Branthwaite massively unless some of you bring something new to the table, because we did the video last night. Terms have been agreed with the player, but we're now living in the world of how long's a piece of string. We could agree a fee with Everton tomorrow and he's holding up a shirt by Sunday. That won't happen. He might not be holding up a shirt until August. Everton have set their price very high, 70 to 80 million pounds. Man United want to bring it down to about 50 million. I think we shouldn't go above 55, and I think we should chuck add-ons on there. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think there's anything else to report on Branthwaite other than very exciting player. I like the player. I like the prospect. You know, it's very interesting when you look at the profile of the Man United squad. I think there's certain players we all want to remove. And it's actually very interesting. I'm going to start bringing in some of the pieces from this Athletic article. So Laurie Whitwell's written an article this morning which sort of summarises the last 2 years and what might happen in the next year. And in fairness, it's not all his words. It says in the article that this has been pulled in from numerous sources who want to stay anonymous, obviously because of the detail of the information that's coming out. I mean, look, ultimately, if it's 90% true, it's from multiple sources and they are very much ingrained into the club, so it's leaks. But there is some interesting stuff in there, and obviously some of these leaks are very, very, very much within the club, because some of the stuff they're saying about Rashford and Sancho and Anthony and the medical team is very, very interesting. But what we were talking about there was about how, you know, removing players from that dressing room is very important, and many of you have spoken about it for a very, very long time. When Erik ten Hag took the job, two of the 3 principles that were set in place for him, like his objectives, if you've ever played Football Manager or FIFA, 2 of the 3 objectives that Erik ten Hag had was 1, to establish an attacking style of football, and 2, to cleanse the dressing room. Now, that doesn't mean get a pair of rubber gloves on, get your Domestos out and start cleaning the dressing room. It's actually quite clean if you've been on the stadium tour. It means get rid of the deadwood. But they set a 6 transfer window time limit for that. Well, Ten Hag has only had This is only his third transfer window. So Ten Hag was set with the task of clearing out the dressing room over 6 transfer windows. Now, not ordinarily, this should be transfer window 5. But INEOS and the Glazers ignored 2 January transfer windows. So this is only his third summer transfer window. So it just shows you you can't clean the dressing room out if they won't sell players. So we obviously want to bring players in, and Branthwaite being a younger player again, and Ten Hag's had great success with younger players, which is why I think Joao Neves would be very interesting, which is why I think Xerxes or Bayer or people like or Elise, they're all under 25. I think this would be a real positive. I think you have to have experience in the squad, but when you've got people like Bruno Fernandes, who's going to be 30, and Johnny Evans probably going to stay another year, do you really need to buy in experience? I think we've had problems with that, and I think we should be looking at players who are under 25 who are really talented, like Branthwaite, because they respond better to Ten Hag. Because look at Højlund, look at Garnacho, look at Dalot, look at Menu. But it's all right saying clear the deadwood, but the Ten Hag doesn't go out with in a suit as a salesman. It's not his job to sell those players. We failed him, and it does say in the article that INEOS have acknowledged or found in their review that the structure above the manager is shit. Like, all right, Ten Hag's had a bit too much control in transfers, although you could counter that by some of the players he wanted that he didn't get in the article, which we'll talk about in a moment. But INEOS have acknowledged the fact that above Ten Hag, not enough has been done. He desperately needs a sporting director. They desperately need a technical team. So the failure to sell players supersedes Ten Hag, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Jose Mourinho. I remember 10 years ago talking about deadwood clearance, and we've never done it. We can't get into sagas this summer over 50 million. If they say no, get Todibo. CUNHA would be perfect for United. 45 million, you get him out of Wolves. Don't forget Elise, sell Casemiro and Eriksen and get Neves, says Sean Turner. Patrick Lynch says, would you be in favour of buying quality like Neves or quantity for rotation? We'll have a large fixture schedule again in the coming season, says Patrick. Quantity is very important, mate. I don't have the detail. If somebody said to me you can get Branthwaite, Neves and a striker, and that's all you get, or you can get 2 centre-backs, a cheaper midfielder, a winger, a striker and a fullback, I'd probably go with the quantity, because as we saw last season, that injury has given me sort of, PTSD. It's that injury crisis last year just makes me, start feeling ill, and the only way to counter that is to have a squad. A lot of people talk about Sancho. I have some Sancho news, but people are saying there's breaking news from Sancho, so let us know what that is, because I have some Sancho stuff, but I don't know whether you're talking about the same thing. Mark, would you be in favour of buying quality? I've done that one from Patrick. If Shaw performs well in the Euros, we should sell him. It's a Space Oddie. Hi Mark, I've been a member for a long time, says Jack. As a Scotsman, I'll be having a beer and hoping for McTominay. I'll be there with you, mate. Watch along tonight, 8 o'clock, France, Scotland. We'll be there, Scooby-Doo. Dowell says, firstly, a huge thanks to whoever gifted me the membership. Secondly, can't help but be sceptical until players hold up the shirt. I've got there. I understand that. I do understand that. I don't know whether there is a Sancho story. I feel that people are probably trying to wind me up, but I have got a bit of Sancho stuff coming in for you, which we'll talk about in a moment. I just want to make sure that we've covered off all of the transfer stuff. So obviously Branthwaite we know about. INEOS are on an assault here. They're moving fast. They're making bids. They're making contacts. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Manchester United look. I think it's going to be busy. Normally, with the Euros, it can be quite slow when the Euros are on, because everyone focuses in on the Euros. INEOS can't afford for that to be the case. And therefore, I expect to see things happening, fairly quickly. Also, just on the case of CUNHA, I think he's another player that's not... He's Brazilian, isn't he? But he won't be in the Brazil squad. So it's another player that you could potentially move on quite quickly, like Todibo, like Branthwaite. On Branthwaite, I'm not going to say anything more. Like the player, but the price could be the problem on how long that takes. De Villas says, do you think Ten Hag would play Martinez as a CDM? I've seen a few people say that. Respect. I've seen a few of you say that. Respect. But Ten Hag has not played him as a holding midfielder when he could have played him over the last 2 years. It was almost obvious to play him there and he didn't do it. And he has spoken before about not wanting to do it. I think the issue with Martinez is that we bought Onana to play out from the back. And Martinez is one of the best players in Europe at taking the ball from the goalkeeper and stepping into the midfield or playing out from the back. So if you put Martinez in the midfield, you don't solve your problem with Onana and playing out from the back. I think Martinez is, I remember speaking to Rasmus before that interview in January, and he was talking about Martinez, and he said, we need him back because when he's back in the team, it changes the way we play. It changes the way we get up the pitch. And you stick Martinez into the midfield, who's giving him the ball? So Martinez, for me, can play as a holding midfielder, but I think he gives you that balance on the left-hand side. But look, never say never. I understand logically he could play there. Let me just talk to you about, let's have a look. Branthwaite we've done. Terms agreed. No fee yet. It's on INEOS and Ten Hag. Yeah, okay. Offers, CUNHA we've done. Nunez we've done. Neves, Elise we've spoken about as well. Just on that Mirror article, remember I said that the Mirror have put an article out today from David McDonald saying that everybody's up for sale apart from Onana, Dalot, Garnacho, Mainu, Højlund. Even Bruno Fernandes is apparently a player that they would take offers from. In fairness, it says in the article itself, though, hypothetically, everybody's up for sale. The reality is that you say everybody's up for sale, but there will be players that you get offers for that you say, no, we're not doing that. And it says that on the article. So I think, that is very clever from INEOS, but also we need to take it with a pinch of salt in the sense that everybody's up for sale, but it doesn't mean they'll sell them. And yeah, maybe somebody comes in and says, we'll give you £60 million for Bruno, and United say no. What's more likely is I think Bruno Fernandes stays and probably signs a new contract, which is what it says in that article as well. Any news on a left back? We need one, says F. We will buy a left back. That will happen. Who that left back will be, we will have to wait and see. Look, Luke Shaw staying fit in the Euros is an absolute need. What's happening with Malacia? I don't think it will happen, but come the first game of the season, Malacia and Luke Shaw might be fully fit. You've also got Amas coming through as well, who I think, even Luke Shaw has spoken about just today. I've seen a clip saying how good he is. So, look, do I want to go into next season with Shaw, Malacia and not buying a left back? Forget about it. No, of course I don't. But let's just see what happens over the next few weeks. I think we do need a left back, but I don't think it's going to be something that we necessarily are involving ourselves in at the moment. At the moment, the midfield, the defence and the attack is where United are focusing on. And we've known that for weeks. The priority is centre-back, centre midfielder and striker. Now, unfortunately, Chelsea are focusing in as a priority for Elise. We might have just stepped away from that for now. And we might have to lose him. It hurts. It hurts. Chelsea fans, clip it. It hurts. If you get Elise, I am not going to sit there and go, we never wanted him anyway. He's a load of shit. He's just a Crystal Palace Old Brighton. He is a player that we should be signing. He is a player that INEOS like. He is a player that Ten Hag likes. And he is a player that we need. But priorities and budgets may have to come into play here because it's a lot of money. But if he goes to Chelsea, they're getting a baller, they're getting a player, and that pisses me off. He is good, and we can't pretend that we don't. I remember this happening with Fabinho to Liverpool years ago, and we'd spoken about him on this channel for 2 years. 2 years we've been saying he's a player that Man United should be looking at, and he went to Liverpool, and I said at the time, I'm not suddenly going to pretend that for the last 2 years I think he's shit. He's a good player, and they've bought a good player, and it's good recruitment. So when and if Elise goes to Chelsea, it is going to be, you're right, Kieran, it's going to be a hold. But I don't understand why people don't understand that. I don't understand why people get so, flip-flop about it. Like, a player is a good player. Whether they're a good fit for Man United or not, they are a good player. So I think that you do. It's a package for me. I'm sort of tempted to open it right now. What's that? Ah, boring. I thought it was going to be like some football boots or something. Yeah. So yeah, I look. I don't know whether it's an age thing, an experience thing, but good players that you should get can go to other clubs, and it's annoying. I'd rather Elise was going to buy. The best thing I can say is I would rather Elise was going to Bayern Munich because he's not in the Premier League playing for a rival, and I think he's a brilliant player. But you can't, as I said last night, you can't do everything in one summer, and you haven't got, because of the way we've been run, we haven't got everything, have we? We can't do it. Other leagues have been sucking Premier League's teeth for years, sucking it dry. Party is over. Prices will drop, says Eric. I can't get excited until it's a here we go, says Tom Best. Right, I want to go into this Athletic article now because there's just a lot in here that I found fascinating to speak to you about. So, as I said, this article's out there this morning. You can read it on the Athletic if you've got access to that or get access to that. I'm only bullet pointing it because it's a massive article. So a lot of the quotes are coming out now anyway. You know, it's not like you can't read it on X. There's a lot of quotes coming out there now anyway. But these are my notes from it. As I said, I suppose we'll start off with Jadon Sancho because a lot of people have been talking about Sancho this morning. Look, this is from the Athletic. It's from Laurie Whitwell. He's in the press conferences with Manchester United. There's a credibility to this. It's clearly coming in from good sources within the club. And, you know, there are some stuff that, you know, we've not been told. So, you know, fair play to that. I mean, first and foremost, it says that Marcus Rashford's wage is 325k a week plus bonuses. So a lot of people have been talking about what the Rashford wage is. From what Laurie Whitwell is saying there and from what they've been told, it's £325,000 a week plus bonuses. So that would suggest it's £325,000 a week basic plus bonuses. It does talk about Rashford, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Sancho, the issues around Jadon Sancho, and it mentions the week before that Arsenal game where Ten Hag mentioned it in the press conference that Sancho wasn't performing well in training and was given the option to come off, and he did. But effectively, it's not a hit piece on Jadon Sancho. It basically just says that, you know, he's a likeable lad. He's described as a cheeky chap with a free spirit, but he's not good with consistency and instruction. And there's nothing wrong with that. Welcome to the world of Earth. Like, we all know people like that. We've all got friends like that. You know, people who are, you know, the life and soul of the party, but you wouldn't necessarily get them to come and cut your grass because halfway round they'd stop and just start talking. So, look, personality and talent, two different things. Personality, talent, consistency, three different things. Personality, talent, consistency, and, you know, performance, four different things. And I think that with Jadon Sancho, it's probably the best explanation I've seen. And we do live in a world where it has to be extreme. You have to hate something or love something. And I always say it's everything in between. Jadon Sancho's a talented footballer. I refuse to say that I wasted 2 summers with you wanting him to sign for Manchester United. I refuse to believe that I was wrong, that, you know, and excited about Sancho, obsessed about Sancho, certainly for 2 summers. Very, very talented player. Absolutely no doubt. The issue with Jadon Sancho is, obviously, he's not consistent and he struggles with instruction, which is why he's been late for training, which is why in games he doesn't track back all the time. He's a bit of a free spirit, like it says. And the bottom line is, that's why Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, probably Ten Hag, Arteta are going to struggle with a player like that. And players like this end up playing for teams like Everton or, you know, mid-table teams where you can be good for half the season and not so good for the other half. Top tier players are consistent in training day in, day out, and games day in, day out. And I think that's the thing with Sancho, is that for some reason, he just doesn't have that. Now, will it come with age? I don't know. But I think it's probably the best explanation of the Sancho situation I've ever read, because it's not been out there. And logically, we've guessed at that for years, but people don't want to talk about it because they want to say he's a load of shit, or it's not his fault he's shit, and you get the extreme. But he won't be the first and he won't be the last player in football that's really talented that just can't be consistent. And by definition, most wingers are inconsistent. I mean, look at Gnabry at Bayern Munich. Has he got a personality issue? Ridiculous talent, ridiculously inconsistent. In fact, so inconsistent that Bayern Munich are looking to get rid of him. And I've seen Gnabry on his day look like he could be one of the best players in the world. Ashley Young, you know, I'm not saying he was on the level of Sancho, but Ashley Young on his day, very, very good, but had countless days where he's very, very inconsistent. The life of a winger is quite inconsistent. I mean, look at Rashford. One great season, one bad season. But I think with Sancho, time to go. Time to move him on, because a player like that is going to struggle to go to the levels that we want to go with Manchester City. And also, this feeds into some of the negativity that came out from the... I mean, I'm taking stuff from the Athletic article now, so this is apparently coming in from, you know, top sources, which I think it is. But one of the feedback points from players about Ten Hag and his coach was this good cop, bad cop thing. And it goes in on Ten Hag saying that, you know, he's obsessive, like 24/7. He's watching football. And some of the feedback from the players were that when he's trying to get his instructions across, you know, he's talking for an hour after training about it. And obviously the players want to get home and stuff like that. It's amazing how that can be a negative for Ten Hag, that he's, you know, he talks too much about the game and he's, you know, he's too obsessive. And yet that's a reason to moan about Ten Hag. And yet when it's been mentioned about Pep Guardiola, everyone's rimming him. Like, it's like, oh my God, you know, he never stops talking about football. He's so obsessive. Everything is so granular. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with having a manager that's watching football all the time and is obsessive. Like, the problem is, as per usual, we don't have what Pep's got at Man City or Barcelona or Bayern Munich. We don't have a set of players that sit there and listen. That's what it comes down to. There's nothing wrong with having an obsessive coach who is obsessed with every little detail and wants to get everything right. In fact, it's good. But it's bad when you've got players who can't be arsed. And at United, that's the problem. We don't have the players that will sit there and listen. Although we do. Because the feedback is that someone like Kobbie Mainoo soak it up like a sponge. That Garnacho and Rasmus want to listen. That Dalot is a player that wants to be better every single day. And what you need to do is build a squad that is capable of listening. And the problem is, as we know with Mourinho and Ollie and Van Gaal and Rangnick, there is a legacy in that dressing room of players that don't want to listen. So it's just about changing that. I never want to hear that it's a negative that you've got a coach that's obsessive on getting instructions through to their players. In relation to signings, very interesting what it goes on to say. Remember, this is the Athletic piece, multiple sources feeding into it. There was a shock, apparently, last summer that Man United didn't get Harry Kane. There was an expectation that the Glazers would go and get Harry Kane. This was what Ten Hag expected. Some of the players expected it, that this was the player that was going to take them to the next level after a good first season. I think that was a bit unrealistic. You know, I think getting Kane out of Spurs was, you know, very, very difficult. But it also goes on to say that Ten Hag still to this day talks about Frenkie de Jong and how massive he would have been to the team, which I do agree with. But again, I don't understand how that deal was going to happen, considering he always said he didn't want to come. It also says that Ten Hag wanted Rice last summer, but more importantly, the summer before, when we ended up going for Casemiro and Declan Rice was open to the move. The funny thing is that obviously Declan Rice went for £100 million to Arsenal last summer, but we're talking about the summer before. We spent £60 million on Casemiro and gave him 300k a week. You wonder, would West Ham have moved around £70 million for Rice the year before? but apparently that's what Ten Hag wanted. He wanted Rice, and we didn't do the deal. Also wanted Gakpo. We didn't do the deal. And, you know, as we know, we haven't always delivered those first choices, which is exactly why INEOS have said as part of their review, the structure above the manager isn't good enough. Also, in relation to injuries, Ten Hag has been on about the medical team for the last 6 months, and it didn't change. You know, I think that's something that INEOS are definitely going to change, this structure. And then there's 3 other bits to bring you as well. Apparently, Casemiro and Varane. Well, Varane's gone now, and Casemiro does need to go. I think everybody sort of agrees with that. Casemiro and Varane had their issues with Ten Hag in relation to they felt that there was too much demand on the players instruction-wise and fitness-wise. And they referenced Zidane and Ancelotti and the freedom and lesser workload that they allowed at Real Madrid. The response to Casemiro and Varane from Ten Hag and his team was that the Premier League is way more competitive and intense than the Spanish League. And if you look at someone like Man City or Liverpool or Arsenal, they're running harder and covering more than Man United are. So we need to do more of that. And I agree with that. It's interesting that Casemiro and Varane didn't agree with that, apparently, because they've won multiple Champions Leagues and they're fantastic players. But I'm not taking a pop at Casemiro and Varane there. I think this is really interesting stuff. Again, it's not about extremes. It's about conversation. You've got Casemiro and Varane, 2 of the best players in their position of the last decade, saying that the workload and the instructions is not what they had at Real Madrid from what I presume they feel are better coaches. But then you've got Ten Hag and United saying, look, the Premier League is very different. And I think this is the problem. You know, Casemiro and Varane will feel that they're right. But I actually side with Ten Hag on this, surprisingly. But I do, because Casemiro and Varane are into their 30s. And the Premier League is very different to La Liga. And I think this is the problem that we all know is staring us in the face. The performing players in Man United's team last season are all under 25, apart from Bruno. And the ones that let us down are all over 25. There's a problem with the more experienced players who think that they're right and actually don't want to do the work that needs to be done. And then the younger players want to do the work. So I think with Casemiro and Varane, that they are clearly 2 players that need to be moved on. And they're wrong. They are wrong. The Premier League, you can't compare what you did at Real Madrid with the Premier League, because the intensity of the Premier League, we see it. Man City are just beast mode, absolute beast mode. And if you want to be like that, you've got to work hard as well. It also goes on to say that Ten Hag has been pissed off with Antony a few times this season. You know, he has had his backing as his signing, but there's been a couple of occasions that have really pissed him off, and he's called him out on it. Chelsea away, that short corner where Antony should have been switched on and covering the edge of the box. And obviously there's been a couple of times where he's been asked to play left back and he's outwardly moaned about it. So look, it's not all about Sancho or anybody else. It's, you know, there are players there that have outwardly caused issues. And, you know, the fact that INEOS have backed Ten Hag now, you need to sack them off, really, don't you? And I'm not saying that Antony will be sacked off, but look, these players need to get on board or get out. It's as simple as that. On to Rashford, quite an interesting bit on Rashford, and I don't want to get misquoted on this, so I want to make sure that I have this correct, what was said about Marcus Rashford in the Athletic piece. It basically says that, and I've got. Let me just get these tweets, because then I can read it out verbatim, and there's no lost in translation here. Rashford is known to have taken issue with Ten Hag's style of management. He is a player that struggles with exhaustive instructions, and is the kind of player who takes on coaching in bite-sized chunks. Also, the arrival of Højlund has seen him move away from the areas where he did his best work, i.e. cutting inside and shooting, where he's been pushed more out wide with Rasmus, a player that likes to run the channels. So clearly the you know, Rashford situation post Belfast as well has led to, you know, a bit of a issue with Erik ten Hag, which I think is completely understandable. But it also says that post the Belfast incident, Man United played against Newport County. Ten Hag fined him 2 weeks and wouldn't play him against Newport County. Rashford requested a conversation one-on-one with Sir David Brailsford, which went on for apparently an hour and a half, and Rashford came out of that quite energised and obviously scored and started against Wolves a couple of days later. It also goes on to say that there has been a little bit more tension between Rashford and Ten Hag, brought about by the fact that Rashford signed up with this PR company that also represents Varane, Ronaldo, Mount, who have, you know, not necessarily had the best relationships with Ten Hag. I don't think Mount's had a problem. But Rashford has done this has made this move because he, you know, to sort of counter the constant media scrutiny and online abuse. So, look, it's not I wouldn't have been speaking about Marcus Rashford this morning. It's mentioned in the article. It also says he's on 325k a week. Look, Sancho's going to go, Anthony's going to stay, and Rashford's going to stay. That's what I think. I mean, this is more about a 2-year review of what's going on at Manchester United. I don't see, unless Man United want to sell him or Rashford wants to go, then sort it out and go. But what we don't want next season, in relation to the Rashford scenario specifically, we don't want next season this, you know, Billy Big Bollocks sort of brandification. Because when you go and work with a PR company to change the social media activity, it's brandification. And if that's going to rub up against the club and the manager, then it's a bit of a hostile act. Because you are basically saying, I'm taking brand Rashford out there to a PR company to make me look better. Because you're not doing it for me. And this is something that INEOS, I think, will look at, because what I was encouraged by was the Rashford and Sir David Brailsford conversation, because Sir David Brailsford is amazing when it comes to, you know, the mental side of sport and performance. And that's where Rashford should be channeling his efforts. The PR stuff, like, I don't know what Rashford pays for the PR company, but, you know, I'd give him free advice, and I think any of us could. Every bit of money you're spending on that PR agency trying to make you look positive, free advice, just play well for Man United. Like, the abuse you get or the criticism you get on social media will die instantly if you start scoring goals for Man United and playing well. Or, you know, in fact, scoring goals is lazy. Score goals, create goals. If you really want this thing to change, start creating goals. Start putting crosses in the box. Start slipping Rashford in one-on-one, or Rasmus in one-on-one, or cutting it back to Bruno. Look at the pass you played in the build-up to the Man City goal. That's probably your highlight of the season. And you scored a worldie at the Etihad, but the pass you played to Garnacho, I would argue Rashford got as much respect. Well, in my mind, I think he got more. I think that pass he played to Garnacho was my Rashford highlight of the season. And yet he scored a couple of brilliant goals. Because that's what we want to see. That is what we want to see. And all this PR shit doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Because you can't fake it at Man United. You look at Paul Pogba, an amazing brand, but no one gave a shit at the end because he wasn't playing, he was injured, he wasn't performing. All this PR bollocks, waste of time. And I think that's what INEOS will say to him. I think they'll say, look, mate, all this PR bollocks just rubs people up the wrong way. Do your PR when you're performing on the pitch. Simple as that. And if you're not happy, leave the football club, because what's happening at this football club now is that players can't throw their toys out the pram and get a manager sacked. It's a new world. So it's work hard, perform, or get out. And look, it's not the end of the world if United sell Rashford. It's not the end of the world if Rashford says he wants to go. I don't think it's going to happen. I really think he's going to stay, and I hope he's going to buckle down. But look, it's not these extremities, is it? Like, someone said to me yesterday, if you could sell Rashford and buy Elise, would you do it? I would, because I want a creative winger. I really want that. And I think Rashford could go and play really well at PSG. So, yeah. But look, it's interesting that the wage is apparently £325,000 a week, because I think that makes it very, very problematic for anybody to come in and, you know, buy Marcus Rashford. I think PSG could build a Champions League winning team with Rashford. They could build around him. Fabrizio Romano has said that Branthwaite remains one of the names on Man United's shortlist for new centre-back, but he's not the only one. Nothing advanced so far between clubs. Everton have no plans to sell him for less than 65 to 70 million. Man United have got 3 more options. Branthwaite keen on the move. This update from Fabrizio, just going back to Branthwaite, is really interesting because, you know, last night when I saw personal terms agreed, as exciting as it was, and I think I said it on the little video I did, personal terms agreed isn't actually that progressive if you're not in good conversations with the club. Like, essentially, some people might say it's tapping up, but and I suppose technically it is, but Everton will have said, look, you can agree personal terms with Branthwaite, but you've got to agree a fee with us. So Everton are not opposed to selling Branthwaite, is what I'm saying. They're not opposed to selling him, but what they're saying is, by all means, have a chat with him, and if he wants to do a deal with you, that's fine, but we're not going to do it unless we get the fee that we want. And this is where it will get interesting with Branthwaite, because I think the deal happens. I don't think you do personal terms with a player, and I don't think Branthwaite. The best thing I would say here is, and was something we said last night, which I think a lot of people agreed with. Branthwaite can't stay at Everton now because Everton fans know that he wants to come to Man United. So it's not like Everton have got all the power. The minute you do personal terms with a player, look, imagine Garnacho's agreed personal terms with Real Madrid. How do you feel about Garnacho next season if he's at Man United? Exactly. So he's very, very highly likely to come to Man United. And on the hotometer, you'll see how high I think later on at 2. But Man United have to play strong ball. They have to play strong ball, because if they don't, then you could have your pants pulled down. And if you didn't see the show last night, we will keep on doing this. It's called being educated and doing your research. Everybody linking Manchester United with BLITZ, but not mentioning the fact that he's on 260 grand a week with 3 years left on his deal, is a prat. Still this morning, people are talking about BLITZ, and I'm like, he's on 260 grand a week at Bayern Munich with a 3-year deal. He's their Sancho. Like, how do you even do that? Anyway, look, so much. We're back at 2. I've got the hotometer updated for you. You don't want to miss that. 7 o'clock tonight instead of 8 o'clock. Get that in your diary. Most important of all, make sure you subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and smash a like on the video. Absolutely fantastic show this morning. I'm sure we'll have a lot more for you to summarise at 2 o'clock. But as I said, personal terms agreed with Branthwaite is nice, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're close, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the deal will get done at all. I suspect it will do, but you've got to be realistic. Let's just hope Branthwaite doesn't end up being another Maguire, says Casey. I don't like the Maguire comparison, really. I'll say about Rashford is, with that wage, INEOS will look to get him out or demand a lower wage for him. He's unless he's a world beater, says Levi. Great show, says James. How big an impact do you think building a stable defensive midfield will have on the attack's ability to create? Huge, huge. And it will also improve INEOS. It will improve Onana as well. Jonathan says the problem with buying before selling is that other clubs know you need to sell and will load the ball. And Weekend Getaway says, also, if you look at the players Ten Hag has bought in, they all have the mentality to listen and work hard. Just unlucky Anthony did not work out, says Weekend Getaway. I've forgotten about transfers since last year. How many of these will actually materialise? I enjoy your coverage, says RG. And Sancho's application overshadowed talent. An obsessive coach is the high-level coach, and opposite to Southgate. You grow with the game or you go extinct, says Akil. And Eric Ten Hag likes balance in the defence. I wonder how he'll make 2 left-footed centre-backs work, says Ryan. It will be interesting. Branthwaite for 70 million or Todibo and Chalobah for the same. Well, Todibo and Chalobah are both right-footed. So I would like Branthwaite and I would also like Todibo. That's what I would like. See you again at 2. Thanks everyone for watching. Absolute legends. Loving the show at the moment. Make sure you subscribe. Take care. Get your comments in if you're not watching live. Speak to you all in a bit.